Episode 32. Why was she let go? Everyone in the hall was dumbstruck when Manager Sanchez agreed with Jeff.
Did he think that his reasoning made sense? And that it was better that Rose had broken the statue, because certain patrons might object to its origins?
As manager of the Berkeley Hotel, Kyle Sanchez naturally had a strongly honed intuition. He could tell Jeff was protecting Rose, so we played along with him and pretended to agree. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You've prevented what could have become a great problem for our hotel.
Then do you still want Rose to pay for the damages?
Jeff asked deliberately. Of course not. It's not necessary. I should be thanking this young lady, Kyle said as he smiled and turned to look at Rose. Miss, please forgive my rudeness just now. Thank you for helping our hotel avoid a loss on behalf of the hotel. How about I give you a reward of $10,000? Kyle thought. Does Mr. Florento like this girl? Because I might have caused a big problem earlier by offending her. The other people's jaws dropped.
Rose had broken $1 million statue. But Sam didn't want to pursue the matter anymore, even wanted to give her money. What kind of logic was that?
They couldn't understand it at all. Rose, of course, didn't want to ask for money. She could only stare blankly in disbelief.
There's no need to pay her. I think this lady doesn't care about the money. Alright, it's getting late. Now that the matter has been resolved, let's go back to sleep,
Jeff said as he smiled. After he finished speaking, the crowd started to disperse. Before Jeff left, he lightly patted Kyle's shoulder and smiled at him. This made Kyle happy. He had been worried that he hadn't handled things well enough, but he was very satisfied now to see that Mr. Florento wasn't angry. Rose grabbed her clothes from the room she had been planning on sharing with Ray and moved in with Susan while Joe went to get another room for himself.
Rose, if it hadn't been for Jeff today, you would be in big trouble,
Susan said. She and Rose were lying on the bed. Rose still had a lingering fear in her heart as she hugged Susan tightly.
It's so strange. A pretty girl like you begged Manager Sanchez for so long, yet he refused to reason with you. Then Jeff came over, said a few words, and everything was suddenly resolved.
Susan pondered.
It's over $1 million. Do you think Jeff knows Manager Sanchez?
How could he possibly know him? It's not like you don't know Jeff's background. I think it might be that Manager Sanchez is superstitious,
Rose said.
My dad's a businessman and he's superstitious in everything he does. I think Jeff's words fooled Mr. Sanchez and made him feel afraid because of his superstitions. Today's matter has nothing to do with Jeff, really?
She added.
No matter what, he helped you today, so don't treat him so badly in the future,
Susan replied as she didn't believe Rose's words. There was a huge flaw in Rose's reasoning.
Even she wasn't fooled by Jeff, so how could he deceive Manager Sanchez?
She thought.
Let's talk about it later. He just got lucky this time,
Rose said while she still thought poorly of Jeff. The next day, Rose and Susan woke up early and got ready to go out and buy her aunt some towels. As Kyle was walking in the corridor, a pair of playful young men hit a clock that was mounted on the wall, which caused all the clock's parts to fall out. The staff quickly called Kyle over. Seeing the clock on the floor, Kyle's heart almost broke. Did you do this? He asked them angrily. Do you know that I spent over $150,000 to buy this antique clock from abroad? Kyle's staff brought the receipt which he showed to the young men. Once they saw it there, her uneasiness disappeared instantly. One of the men took the document, held it up in his hand, and said,
Manager Sanchez, I must say I smashed your clock today.
Both of them had witnessed yesterday's scene with Jeff and Rose, and they thought Kyle would fall for the same trick. One of them said,
I can see on the receipt that you bought this clock in Russia. And it was made by a master clockmaker in the 19th century. Do you know that many of your customers might object to this Russian-made object in your hotel?
He was using the same argument that Jeff had made the day before, and ended proudly with,
You see, I helped your hotel avoid a loss. You can offer me money too.
The young men thought they had gotten away with breaking the clock, but Kyle roared angrily. You dare to ask me for money? Yesterday, I was helping Mr. Florento. Who do you think you were to treat me like a fool? Now you need to pay me twice the price. Otherwise, don't even think of walking out the door.
Hey, how dare you threaten me? Do you know who I am?
The youth pointed at Kyle and said arrogantly,
My dad is one of the heads of the Lions Group. He's 10 times richer than you. And he's related to very important people.
"Oh," Kyle said contemptuously. "I'll say it again, if you don't pay me twice the price, don't even think about leaving here today. Let's see how awesome your dad is."
Okay, since you want to die, then let me help you. Even if you kneel on the ground and bow to me later, it won't be of any use.
After the young man said those harsh words, he took out his phone and called his father.
Hey, Dad, I got caught breaking a clock at the hotel. The manager wants me to pay him double what it cost him. And he wouldn't even listen to who you are.
Damn, I think he doesn't want to live anymore. Son, tell me, what's his name? I'll rush over right now.
The young man's father exclaimed.
His name is Kyle Sanchez. He's at the Berkeley Hotel right now.
The young man said while turning to sneer at Sam.
What? Who did you say? Kyle Sanchez from Berkeley?
Asked the young man's father.
What's the matter, Dad?
The young man asked in surprise, wondering why his father sounded so panicked.
You idiot. Who told you to provoke Mr. Sanchez? Apologize to him now.
His father demanded.
Dad, what's wrong with you? He wants twice as much money from me to compensate for the clock. This is a scam.
The young man was about to die from anger.
Hey, even if it's 10 times more, you still have to pay him for it. It's your bad luck to say something to make Mr. Sanchez angry. Now, no matter what, you must ask Mr. Sanchez to forgive you, or you don't need to come back.
Demanded his father. The youth was no fool. He was not someone who can afford to offend a man that even his father was afraid of.
Mr. Sanchez, I'm sorry. I was in the wrong and I apologize. Didn't you say that I should compensate you with twice the amount? All right, I will pay.
The young man said solemnly as he bowed and walked in front of Kyle. He was as humble as could be. Don't embarrass yourself here. Go scram to the first floor and pay up, then leave. Kyle commanded. Kyle's insulting words sounded like heavenly music to the young man. He nodded and quickly left the corridor with his friend. The crowd gradually dispersed as well. Only then did Kyle notice that Rose and Susan were also there. He cursed silently before greeting them. Miss Wayne, Miss Hill, both of you were here too, he said. Rose and Susan were both stunned by what they had just seen. The young man did the same thing they had done yesterday. But the clock he had broken is worth far less than the statue that Rose had smashed. That was worth over $1 million. He had said that his dad was a leader of the Lion Group, and that he was connected to the management. Even with such a prestigious background, the man had been terrified of Kyle.
What kind of person was Kyle? And what was the real reason for his letting Rose go yesterday?
Manager Sanchez, what's going on?
Jeff walked over while stretching his back. Kyle was a little tongue-tied. If he described what had just happened, wouldn't that give away that he had been acting with Jeff yesterday? Mr. Florento didn't want Miss Wayne and the others to know, thought Kyle. After listening to what you said yesterday, I've reflected deeply and decided to get rid of all the beautiful things. Kyle lied because he couldn't let Jeff be exposed in front of Rose. At the most, he could just apologize to him in private. Rose and Susan were stunned again when Kyle said this, especially Rose. She wanted to convince herself that regardless of the facts, his actions had nothing to do with Jeff, and now Kyle was lying and helping him. Rose stared at Jeff with her eyes wide open. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't figure out what was going on. After this little episode, Rose and Susan quickly left to do their shopping.
Rose, you saw Manager Sanchez's attitude just now. He doesn't care about patrons objecting to Russian objects. He let us go yesterday, not because of Jeff's words. I think he must know him,
Susan said as they walked down the street.
It seems that way now, but I can't believe it. You know how poor Jeff is.
Rose said as she frowned.
Right now, we're still not sure. We should watch him carefully from now on. If he's hiding something, he'll expose it.
Okay, but when you see him later, you should just say thank you to him,
Susan advised, returning to the hotel. They found that Jeff and Joe had already stopped a bus and were ready to go back to the university. As for Ray, he had snuck away alone some time ago. In the bus, Rose wanted to thank Jeff, but he wouldn't even look at her. Plus, she had never been nice to Jeff before. When they got out of the car, Rose's thank you again got stuck in her throat.
Joe, you go back with Susan first. I have something to do.
Jeff said as he couldn't wait to find Lelaine and take her to see the villa.
Rose.
Susan whispered, winking at her. Only then did Rose muster up a bit of courage.
Jeff.
Rose shouted.
What's wrong?
Jeff looked at her in confusion.
That what happened yesterday. Thank you.
She stammered.
It's nothing. You guys go back first. I'm leaving.
Jeff said quickly as he ran off. Rose looked at Jeff's back as he walked away and felt left out. She was a rich girl and talked to Jeff, a poor student, but he didn't seem to care at all. He didn't stop to acknowledge her apology.